Hey guys, and welcome back to Hoosier Hardware, and today I want to talk about the $400 gaming PC that I successfully put together very recently, and that includes all taxes, all shipping, every single item in this build is covered by the budget of $400, and I actually had just a little bit of money left to spare, and that even includes things like zip ties. Like if I used it in the build, it is covered by the budget. So $400 capable 1080p gaming PC is absolutely possible, and I want to show you what I came up with after about a week of searching on eBay. But before we get into that, if you are new here, consider subscribing down below for more PC tech related things. I got a lot on the Steam Deck and SteamOS coming down the road since my Steam Deck just showed up, so stay tuned for that. With that all said, let's look at this PC. So over here we have the exact components that I put into this system. So off the start here, we have the i3-10100F, and this came with the cooler. Now this was a really good find because it came in at like $59.99 or something like that before taxes with free shipping, but the cooler was completely unused. So had I not needed to purchase thermal paste for something like the GPU, then this would have saved altogether on having to get any thermal paste because that cooler not only was unused, but the thermal paste was left on there. It was in its original factory box, so it was good to go. Now, the GPU was probably the best find of the entire build, and that was the RX 480 8GB card. I put in a best offer of like $75 after shipping and taxes. It came out to $96.35. Basically, if you're gonna go sub $400 and still have a competent CPU and platform that is upgradable, you're going to need to get a GPU for around $100 or slightly less. So this was a really excellent find. If you're looking out there for GPUs, it's more likely that you're going to find something like an RX 480 4GB card for this price. But of course, if you find something on your local market that is of a similar price, go ahead and snap that up. Just understand there's a good chance you're going to need to clean it and very possibly replace the thermal paste, which is exactly what I had to do. So I did factor in the thermal paste cost. If you didn't have any laying around, you would have to buy a little tube of it. I found it for as cheap as $7.03, and I think that was actually Arctic MX4 on, I believe that was Amazon. Now, the RAM and storage both came directly from Amazon, brand new, and basically I looked for the cheapest versions of those sort of specs that I was looking for. So I found the cheapest 412GB NVMe drive I could, as well as the cheapest 16GB of DDR4 RAM that I could, and those just happen to be on Amazon. So pricing and availability will fluctuate a lot, especially with Amazon and eBay. So check those links in the description down below in case you're looking for these types of items. Now, the power supply came from an EVGA B-Stock Wednesday midweek madness sale. So if you're looking for a power supply, lately they've had a ton of them on their midweek madness sales. That's why I recommend getting those. The case plus the two case fans I added came from Newegg. That was the case, and the fans themselves came from Amazon. The fans were like $6 a piece or something like that. And the motherboard I wanted to mention, originally, it cost me $42.75, but it had a broken gigabit Ethernet port on it, like the pins were all ripped up in it. So I reached out to the seller, and this is why I love eBay. Because it was listed as used and fully functional, I suggested, hey, I found a gigabit Ethernet card on eBay for $10.60. I said, can you give me a refund for $10.60 to cover the cost of getting that card instead of just refunding the whole motherboard? They said, absolutely. And then they sent me like $16 instead of the $10.60. But I would note that even with the $10.60, like the price difference between what they gave me back and what I needed, I still would have fit it into the $400 budget, even had I just used the $10.60 that they sent back. They sent me some extra money back, and I'm not going to complain too much about that. But regardless, I did have a gigabit Ethernet card that I didn't think I would need in the budget thrown in there. But all things together, $391.63 for this PC. So let's look at the gaming performance here, because yeah, this thing can actually game pretty well. Now in CSGO, high settings, 1080p. Now this was a bot match, not a live internet match, so that might affect things just a little bit. But with bots anyways, the average FPS was 251. The 1% low was there at 134, and the 0.2% low was down there at 119. But basically, this was a fantastic experience. I didn't really see any sort of smoothing over issues. The only thing I would note is there was just a little bit of hitching and stuttering at the very beginning of the first round. After that, it was perfectly smooth. You could absolutely be very competitive running this hardware configuration in a game like CSGO. Moving over to a single-player, AAA, highly intensive game, Cyberpunk 2077, medium preset, 1080p. Yeah, this was another good experience. Like, after the first few seconds, everything smoothed out. The average frame rate was right there at 45, the 1% low down there at 37, and the 0.2% low at 34. And this was a really good experience because those 1% and 0.2% lows were very close to the average and not below 30 FPS. You're not really noticing any major hitches and stuttering as you play. So because this is a little bit of a slower paced title anyways, this is more than playable at 1080p, and you're gonna have a good experience playing Cyberpunk using this configuration. The other game I took a look at was Dying Light 2, and it was very similar to Cyberpunk 2077. Basically, the same exact things apply. The average frame rate was solid, and the 1%, 0.2% lows were there, close enough to the average that you don't notice any stuttering, and they stayed above 30 FPS. So once again, a really good experience. But that does lead me into talking about probably the weak point of this system is actually that processor. 4 cores and 8 threads is good enough for the vast majority of games on the market right now. That being said, it might not be good enough in the not so distant future, but because we're on a somewhat modern Intel platform here, you do have upgrade options, whether you're going to an i5 with 6 cores and 12 threads, or you go all the way to the i7 for even better CPU performance. Those processors are going to keep your system very relevant for the foreseeable future. And since the startup cost of this system was so low, saving up a couple $100s for CPU upgrades, cooler upgrades, whatever down the road as you go is not bad. Same things apply to the GPU. Because we have a 650 watt power supply, a GPU upgrade should be basically just dropping in the new GPU and off you go, especially with the case fans we added to this particular case. Airflow is solid, so this thing can definitely accommodate a much stronger GPU. So that sort of rounds it up for this $400 gaming PC. I do want to hear from you guys out there, especially those of you that have built a PC recently. What were you able to put together, and what was the pricing that it came in at? Let us know all your thoughts in those comments down below, as well as maybe what you would change up about the PC that I put together, keeping in mind $400 is a very tight budget. But otherwise, I will let YouTube queue up some more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I will see you guys in the next video.